Continuing after the action-packed events in the first arc, we now dive into even more thrilling action as Chihiro comes face to face with a formidable enemy to protect a little girl and retrieve an enchanted blade. So sit back but don't relax, as this series is just starting to really heat up from here on out. After several hours, Chihiro is still very uneasy. His hands were still trembling from stress, knowing that at this very moment, evil individuals are using the enchanted blades made by his father. However, since Azumi and Shiba had told him to stay put while they planned their next move, he was becoming somewhat restless. In contrast, Char was just sleeping comfortably on the sofa, and it seemed she was even peacefully dreaming of playing Shiratori. Chihiro went to Hinao to thank her for taking them in. Now, let's go back to the man Chihiro defeated the other day. His real name is Norisaki Madoka. People called him Daruma because of his ability to explode Darumas. He was an undefeated supreme sorcerer, and it was his first time experiencing loss when he went up against Chihiro. His relationship with his own mother and sister was in a terrible state due to his evil actions as a sorcerer. But during his interrogation, Shiba sensed that he still had a good heart deep down inside. He decided to follow Shiba's advice and begin to change his life. He then called his sister, because from now on, he was leaving his life as a sorcerer behind. He wanted to fix his life and reconnect with his family. His sister decided to pick him up and accompany him so they could visit their mother together. As Daruma walked on a crutch towards his sister, he was thankful to Shiba for the second chance at life he just got. But all of a sudden, something just pierced through his sister in the stomach. When he looked from behind the vehicle, there was Sojo, lying in wait. He was immediately stabbed with the katana and instantly regretted that his innocent sister had been involved because of him. According to Sojo, Daruma needed to pay him back with deaths because of his recent failure. Daruma asked if he had also killed his mother while releasing a tremendous amount of Darumas. He intended to blow himself up along with Sojo. But due to the slow process, Sojo had moved away before he could even detonate. Only one life was taken by him. At that moment in the car, Daruma's sister was actually just unconscious but still pretty much alive. It seemed that Daruma was unaware that he had killed his own sister before performing kamikaze. It looks like Sojo isn't finished yet. There was a familiar sorcerer waiting for him in an alley who had requested of him to kill a man with a scar on his face. He was the younger brother of the sorcerer who could manipulate brainwaves. And it turned out that he had seen Chihiro behead his older brother. Sojo didn't appreciate being ordered around by a sorcerer he considered inferior to himself. And besides, he needed to quench his thirst for blood. So he dragged the sorcerer, holding him by the neck and wrist using just one hand. But because the sorcerer's other hand was free, he managed to use his brainwaves manipulation technique on Sojo, just like the skill his older brother has. When Sojo woke up from the trauma he had dreamed of, where he is shown to have killed so many people, he was actually impressed by the sorcerer's ability. But he killed him anyway, and decided to kill some other random person as well. He walked the streets of Tokyo casually, carrying his katana with him, until he reached Hinao's place. The events unfolded rapidly, and Sojo nearly killed Hinao if not for Chihiro's quick reactions. Sojo was actually excited to fight Chihiro, amazed by his quick movements. Finally, Chihiro saw the cloud gouger that Sojo has in his possession. The impact from the cloud gouger was so powerful that it not only sent Chihiro flying but also shattered several layers of walls. This woke up Char, who was still sleeping in the room. Peering out, she was shocked by what was happening. Hinao quickly went to her so they could hide together. Amidst the smoke and debris, Chihiro stood asking Sojo if the people he killed with the cloud gouger were evil. Sojo didn't care about that, because the truth is, he is just a bloodthirsty murderer. Chihiro remembered the warning from Azumi and Shiba that he was not strong enough to defeat Sojo. But no matter what, it was time for the Enchanted Sword versus Enchanted Sword fight that Sojo was greatly looking forward to. And I'm sure Chihiro was truly looking forward to the showdown as well. Earlier today, in Azumi and Shiba's car, the two were discussing the cloud gouger and Sojo. They had an uneasy feeling due to the recent strange behavior pattern of their enemy. It was almost as if they were baiting the Kamanabi. Azumi believed that Chihiro should keep a low profile for now, especially since he was now capable of fighting, knowing that Sojo loves a good duel. During the last Imperial War, all the sorcerers who had enchanted blades from Kunishige were all allies fighting for the same side. None of them had yet seen an enchanted blade being used against another enchanted blade. When they got to the Tokyo Museum of History, there were so many people falling in line. It's because just last week, people celebrated the anniversary of the end of the war. The Rokuhara family name is truly legendary due to the significant contribution of its enchanted blades in ending the war. And now, children are taught to honor Kunishige as a national hero. But should there be an incident in public concerning enchanted blades, it could crumble all of that good reputation. Back to the fight. Chihiro's mind is in total chaos with all that he is currently contemplating. But what dominated his thoughts was the enemy before him that he needed to defeat. Sojo wondered how Chihiro had managed to withstand his Mei attack that unleashed a very powerful lightning. And how on earth did he come to possess an enchanted blade that he had not heard of before? Meanwhile, Chihiro was pondering why his opponent seemed more interested in his enchanted blade rather than in Char. He glanced at the back door and prepared to make a run for it. They took their battle outside, and both displayed incredibly fast dexterity. Sojo's Cloud Gouger has 3 skills. The first one is Mei, which unleashes thunder, and the second one is Yui, which unleashes ice. Using black, Chihiro flew and managed to destroy the ice heading towards him. And beyond that, the slash from black still reached Sojo and had to be blocked by him. While deeply pondering Chihiro's movements, Sojo failed to immediately notice the wakizashi that was already dangerously close to his face. But he still managed to quickly block it upwards. He quickly figured out that it was just a decoy to allow Chihiro to attack from behind. Due to Sojo's immense strength, Chihiro was thrown backward after blocking his attack. But at least, Chihiro had given the people around a chance to get away, and himself a short breather. Now, he was certain that Sojo's strength far surpassed his own. He wasn't even fully engaged in battle yet, plus he was still far from exhaustion. Chihiro considered whether he should gamble his remaining energy on using Nishiki. But Sojo was in the mood to tell a story first. He confessed to Chihiro that he truly admired Kunishige Rokuhara greatly. He had just recently acquired the Cloud Gouger, and this providence delighted him so much. He felt a special connection to Kunishige's creations. He directly asked Chihiro how he managed to obtain an enchanted blade that he has no knowledge about. Chihiro refused to give Sojo an answer, so Sojo just simply asked him what his reason is for wielding an enchanted blade. Chihiro reflected the words that had come directly from his father, to protect the innocent and pursue the wicked. The bloodthirsty villain was utterly disgusted by Chihiro's words. Every available piece of literature about Kunishige mentioned that very same thing. According to Sojo, no one else understood the real truth except for him. He leaped backward from the rooftop towards the civilians, proclaiming that the real purpose of creating enchanted blades was to kill as many people as you possibly can. While being emotionally heightened, Sojo stabbed the Cloud Gouger downwards into the road to electrify the whole surrounding area. He used the skill Mei amidst many city folks. This resulted in an extremely bright and large area of effect. He waited for the thick smoke that enveloped him from the large spark to clear. Afterward, he saw Chihiro standing in front of him, injured and still smoking from getting electrocuted. He was puzzled why the people nearby were still alive. What Chihiro had done was sync his own electric attack with Sojo's. Thus, Chihiro managed to redirect all the electricity released by the Cloud Gouger towards himself. Sojo realized that Chihiro had absorbed the full force of his attack alone. And beyond that, he questioned whether Chihiro's enchanted blade also possessed a lightning skill. He thought Chihiro's move was foolish and he could just easily repeat his previous attack. But he was surprised when he couldn't perform it again. Unknown to him, the Cloud Gouger's Mei skill actually had a 20-second cooldown. Of course, Chihiro knew this, as his father had taught him everything about enchanted blades. Sojo slowly approached the weakened and wounded Chihiro. Chihiro was just glad that he had given the bystanders a moment to escape. And the Kamianabi might just reach their location within 20 seconds. But remembering Sojo's bloodthirsty words from earlier, Chihiro found the strength to keep fighting. And now he uses Nishiki. Enten's Nishiki skill is a self-supporting buff that envelopes the user's entire body with high-density spirit energy to enhance all movements. However, before Chihiro could act, the stress, fatigue, and injuries caught up with him. He still hadn't had a long rest ever since his first battle in Tokyo. Sojo wondered what went wrong with his use of the Mei skill earlier. It turns out that mastering the enchanted blade within a week is not that simple to achieve. He continued to mock Chihiro's heroism. He deemed Chihiro's efforts to protect his friends and the people as nonsense. He reiterated his belief that Rokuhara's creations were made solely for destruction. Chihiro was enraged, and Sojo was shocked because suddenly, Chihiro was able to move even faster. Sojo decided to use the third skill of Cloud Gouger, Ketsu. It released many ice crystals around him, but Chihiro had enough speed and strength to destroy these obstacles in his path. As Chihiro approached, Sojo was already prepared to decapitate him. But to his surprise, he almost experienced a very fast counterattack from Chihiro. Chihiro did not pursue with the counterattack because he needed to dodge Sojo first. Only a few seconds remained before the enemy could use the Mei skill again. Chihiro was also running out of strength, so he needed to end the fight quickly. But because he was so focused on the fight, he didn't realize that, of course, Sojo's henchmen had already kidnapped Char. Chihiro deeply regretted this. He immediately left the fight to chase after Char's kidnappers. Sojo felt slighted, not wanting Chihiro to just leave him, so he used the Mei skill again. But a man from somewhere used the Gansui technique. He forged up a thick wall from the ground, blocking the electrical current that was targeted at Chihiro. It looks like our hero's earlier prediction was correct. The Kaminabi would arrive at their location within 20 seconds. 5 elite members of the Kaminabi surrounded Sojo, and he worried about how he could escape from this situation, especially since he knew he couldn't fight them all in the presence of the 2 sorcerers on the rooftop. Those 2 were Shiba and Azumi. Shiba wanted to help Chihiro, but Azumi stopped him, urging him not to make rash decisions as they are trying to prevent further damage to the city. Sojo used another skill, this time Ko, which caused a large explosion. Chihiro quickly caught up to the vehicle where Char and the kidnappers were. Upon reaching the car, he immediately beheaded the driver and the one holding Char. To his shock, all that was there was Char's severed left leg. Chihiro pulled the 3rd kidnapper from the car amidst the ongoing car crash. He interrogated the kidnapper, who revealed that Sojo had ordered them to amputate the child's leg, hoping to mislead them. And it worked. He is now alone, lying bloodied in an alley. Char was once again in the hands of the enemy. Chihiro felt terrible not only for failing to retrieve the Cloud Gouger, but also for not being able to protect Char. Exhausted and nearly unconscious, Shiba teleported just in time to catch him. Sojo had now rendezvoused at the buggy with his henchmen and several sorcerers. The enemies inside the buggy watched as Char's severed left leg regrew. They asked Sojo how his fight went and if he had managed to master the enchanted blade. Sojo's hands were also trembling. He realized that there was still much he didn't know, and that using enchanted blades was not as easy as he thought. But now, having reclaimed the material, as they called it, it was time to proceed with their evil plan. With the new knowledge that Chihiro was the son of his idol, Kunishige, Sojo's new desire was to speak again with the young man about the legacy of Rokuhara. Chihiro woke up full of bandages inside a hospital room. His body still hurt, as he struggled to move. He suddenly remembered Char and was worried about how she was doing. Azumi and Shiba immediately came to see him, but he couldn't understand what the 2 kept on mumbling about. For now, he was confined in a public hospital. They would have wanted to transfer him to the Kaminabi hospital so he can heal faster, but they were still keeping the information about Kunishige's son from the higher-ups a well-guarded secret. Chihiro asked Shiba how Char and Hinao were doing. Hinao is already in good condition, but they still had no news of Char. However, Shiba believes that the enemies do not intend to kill the child, based on information he got from Daruma. In Sojo's possession was a material called Datanseki. It was a source material used in the creation of enchanted blades. This unique material was discovered during the war. It is so rare that there are only 250 kilos of it in the entire world. Like the enchanted blades, it could concentrate and amplify a person's spirit energy. However, because the material was toxic, it's got a nasty side effect that would immediately cause the user's body to burst. Kunishige was the only person who had successfully stabilized the power of Dattenseki, and he's the only person who knew how to use it properly for creating enchanted blades. In Sojo's secret laboratory, experiments with Dattenseki are already ongoing. The real reason Sojo kidnapped Char was because he needed DNA from the lineage of the Kainagi clan. In theory, it could serve as a stabilizing agent in their process of creating a weapon even more powerful than the enchanted blades. Char's greatest fear had come true, being locked in a dark place where she was only fed per prison food. She was forced to serve Sojo as a source of unlimited samples of various body parts, internal organs, and bones containing Kainagi DNA. And Sojo ruthlessly abused and exploited Char's regenerative powers. Chihiro remembered their previous conversation when Char told him she trusted him, that he could protect her. Tears of anger filled Chihiro's eyes. He couldn't accept that he had failed the little girl. Inten, his enchanted blade, is in a safe place, and Shiba apologized on behalf of the Kamianabi for not figuring out the enemy's real plan and motive sooner. Because of recent events, the Kamianabi wanted to take action immediately and formed an elite corporation. They asked for Chihiro's help because they needed to understand the enchanted blades, and no one else knew more about them than he did. With his consent, he agreed to support them. Azumi called his 5 elite sorcerers, who exhibited various extreme and eccentric personalities. Azumi apologized to Chihiro because he knew they could be quite bothersome, but Chihiro didn't mind. According to one member, no evidence or clue was left at the enemy's original location, as they learned from Daruma's confession. So, while they are still searching for the new location, they needed Chihiro's knowledge to develop a good strategy, as they would be dispatched as soon as they found the new base. Chihiro agreed to share his knowledge with them, but on one condition. In return, they had to allow him to join the operation. The youngest member of the elite squad gave a violent reaction. Another member, wearing a gas mask, apologized on his behalf, explaining that their youngest member was still new, and he always felt insecure around strong youngsters like him. Chihiro received commendation from the other 4 members, impressed by his recent actions being able to protect all the civilians caught between his duel with Sojo. Chihiro gave a literal explanation of how he did it. The masked member thought Chihiro was a cool hero for being willing to sacrifice his own life for others. But Chihiro declined the praise, saying he was just practical and he figured he could withstand the attack. According to the elite member wearing glasses, the real truth was that Chihiro is just a hot blood that fought too recklessly. Shiba pointed out to Chihiro that his injuries were too severe, and he had allowed his left arm to be incapacitated. He still needed to heal for a full month, which Chihiro was unhappy to hear. Actually, 5 days had already passed since Chihiro lost consciousness, and they could not afford to wait for Chihiro to recover. Chihiro felt deep guilt upon learning that Char had been suffering at the hands of Sojo for 5 days already. Regardless of the consequences or the risks, he refused to be left out of their operation. The member with glasses told him that their only one mission is to eliminate Junichi Sojo. Rescuing the child is not a priority. But he learned from Shiba that Chihiro was the type of person who would do whatever he wanted, even if they told him not to. So, he thought it best to just let Chihiro join them. Besides, while their group will be fighting Sojo, Chihiro is the perfect candidate to be held responsible for rescuing Char. He trusted that this was a good plan. And of course, because no one could stop our relentless hero. He agreed to help them carry out their new half-baked plan. That evening, they settled and finalized the plan for the operation. They were confident that it would only be a short while before they find Sojo's base. So, Chihiro needs to be prepared anytime to respond to their call as soon as the news arrived. 2 days later, Shiba visited Chihiro to check on him and learn about the progress of his body's healing. He was far from 100%, but at least he could move his body. However, his left arm still seemed to be incapacitated. Shiba understood very well what Chihiro is probably feeling about his situation. Although frustrated, Chihiro still managed to be logical in his thinking and did not make rash decisions based on emotions. The level of maturity and talent he showed at such a young age was remarkable. Unlike him, Azumi, or Kunishige when they were only 18 years old. Their conversation was interrupted when someone called Chihiro's flip phone. In a damaged Japanese dojo-style mansion, several sorcerers and swordsmen could be seen guarding the place with a few of them fooling around. Some of the guards had become very complacent because they thought their force was super formidable, and even their boss, Sojo, could basically operate as a one-man army. It seemed impossible that anyone would dare to attack their new base. Meanwhile, in a town someplace else, we can see the local bathhouse where Sojo was relaxing, and 3 people entered the place to meet him. While bathing, Sojo contemplated the possibility that his idol Kunishige could actually have a son, even though there was no mention of this in any documents concerning the Rokuhara. He detested remembering Chihiro's heroism, which was also recorded in the history books. His visitors arrived, accompanied by 2 bodyguards, and complained that the product Sojo had delivered to them the previous day was not invisible to trackers. Moreover, they were not pleased that someone is possibly watching their movements. Besides that, they were unhappy that their number 1 sorcerer, Daruma, had died because of him. Instead of apologizing or renegotiating, Sojo just insulted them further, which, of course, would lead to an inevitable fight. However, the fight lasted only a few seconds, and Sojo ended it without even moving away from his spot. He was troubled because their research on controlling Datanseki had still not been successful. He wondered what was missing from their process that they couldn't figure out, and he couldn't dismiss the idea that Kunishige's child might know something they needed. After bathing, our psychopathic villain began drying his hair. He then said goodbye to the receptionist and made her call for the authorities. He did this because he expected that he would have enemies waiting for him as he left the bathhouse. He also anticipated meeting Chihiro again to discuss the enchanted blades. After grabbing his katana, he headed straight out. For him, the brief fight earlier was already a sufficient warm-up. Unlike the time before the war ended, only a few people knew about the sorcerer's existence. Now, almost everyone knew about them because many of them have been operating in public. And these phantoms, as they were called, were responsible for keeping the peace of the nation intact. And now they are here to kill Sojo. Their captain was a bit nervous because Sojo seemed so relaxed and confident in facing them. But that was no longer important because everyone was ready to fight. Without hesitation, Sojo immediately used the power of Cloud Gouger against them. It seemed he was only interested in quickly finishing the fight so he could go see Chihiro. A strong storm was approaching the area where the enemy's secret base was located. Suddenly, a black goldfish appeared in front of the guards slacking off. And in the direction it headed, there lies a severed head. Looking into the distance, Chihiro can be seen standing in a dark corner. Suddenly, the phone on the table with 3 guards rang. One of them answered, and he was already sweating. Nervously, he made an excuse to end the call quickly without any suspicions. But as it turned out, he was the only one left alive, and he was now Chihiro's hostage. Back to the fight with Sojo, it seemed that the anti-Cloud Gouger Special Forces had gained another member. Even though Sojo was showing confidence, he knew he still had to take seriously the strength of the 5 elite sorcerers he was now facing. Although for him, it would have been better if Azumi and Shiba were there to really test the limits of the Cloud Gouger. For their first move, Shiyumi used her skill called Gon's Way. The ground beneath Sojo began to bulge, and suddenly there was a huge burst of earth shooting up into the sky. Going back to the meeting with Chihiro on the hospital rooftop 2 days ago, Chihiro explained to them in detail the 3 skills of Cloud Gouger. Yui is for ice, Ko for water, and Mei for lightning. Shiyumi inquired if Azumi could join them in their fight, but only the 5 of them, along with another who is currently investigating at the base, were specifically assigned on this mission. According to their team captain, Akudo, due to numerous upcoming events plotted by Hishaku, the Kaminabi cannot afford to send all their strongest agents to one location. Therefore, their team's combined abilities should suffice to challenge Sojo, provided their strategy works effectively. They took the fight to the sky using large platforms elevated by Shiyumi, gradually moving them all towards the ocean. Sojo was impressed by this move and responded with a smile while using Mei's electrifying skill. He targeted their captain, Akudo, who was charging at him with knives, but thankfully, Shiyumi was able to quickly protect him. Akudo leaped high in the sky after Mei struck the wall, while Hajime charged at the flank using a skill that hardens his hands. However, due to Sojo's quick reaction, he managed to counterattack, and Hajime could only block the katana with his hands. Akuto threw his knives at Sojo, who used Yui to generate ice as a shield against the projectiles while kicking Hajime away forcefully. Akuto then used Jikai to redirect his knives towards the enemy, breaking the ice. Sojo was surprised but still managed to dodge them. Meanwhile, their sixth member, Makoto, was ready to attack from above using his skill that enlarges his fists. This caused an explosive impact, but it seemed Sojo still managed to evade it, resulting in a temporary stalemate. It appears their actions were all part of the strategy, after all. Chihiro advised them to continuously attack Sojo with multiple attacks to prevent him from charging his power using Cloud Gouger, which he likely knew how to use by then. A fully charged hit from Sojo would be disastrous for anyone it struck. Sojo quickly figured out their strategy but believed he could defeat them using a combination of Ko and Mei, creating a large splash of water mixed with electricity. Kayahiko, Hajime, Makoto, and Akuto endured the full brunt of Sojo's skill combo, but they seemed able to withstand it well. This, too, was part of Chihiro's prediction during their meeting. Combining those two skills is a basic tactic associated with Cloud Gouger. If they continue to give Sojo a hard time, he would likely resort to this tactic. When he did, they were to simply withstand it, knowing it wouldn't be as powerful as a fully charged attack. Hajime and Kayahiko questioned the necessity of this strategy, fearing it might give Sojo enough time to fully charge. And indeed, they were right to think that. In fact, they must allow Sojo to fully charge and use his strongest Mei. They were shocked and questioned if they were actually expected to die. Chihiro iterated that in the worst-case scenario, there could be fatal casualties. If done right, however, this high-risk, high-reward tactic could provide them with a window of opportunity when Sojo becomes vulnerable. In short, they needed to bait Sojo into thinking they were avoiding his use of fully charged Mei, when in fact, they really wanted him to use it in order to create an opening. To survive the fully charged Mei, they have to bring everything they have to the fight. Chihiro trusted that as an elite squad, they had the capability to execute the plan well. Everything was going according to plan so far. Everyone except Sojo and Akuto jumped up. Now that Sojo was ready to unleash the fully charged Mei, Akuto placed his hands on the ground and used Jikai. This destroyed the ground, dispersing all the water from the ground, which absorbed and sucked in all the electricity Sojo released using Mei. Yet it was still uncertain who had the advantage in this fight, and Akuto showed excitement due to being impressed with the resourcefulness of their current opponent. Now, they have a 10-second window to quickly unleash all their attacks on Sojo. Sojo finds everything happening around him very unsettling, with Chihiro's heroic face looming in his mind. Returning to the enemy base, the guard had provided Chihiro with all the information he needed about the enemies at the base and the lab's location where Char is imprisoned. According to the guard, there's no way Chihiro could avoid a fight with the sorcerers guarding the lab. And since Chihiro is not in condition to fight, it was unlikely he would leave the place alive. Chihiro is now inside the basement, observing from the ceiling bars, where the lab's entrance was located. The outcome of the two current battles remains uncertain. An enchanted blade's main component, the Datanseki, is a natural material with no true limit to its capacity to unleash power. The truth is, its true effectiveness is a variable that's based entirely on its user's true capability. The true realm of the enchanted blades. What does it really mean? Chihiro explained at their last meeting with Akuto and the rest that it was only mentioned to him by his father. Indeed, if the enchanted blades are heralded as the very weapons that ended the war, it stands to reason that they should be far more powerful than how the three skills of Cloud Gouger suggests. However, what's somewhat difficult to understand and identify is that it doesn't mean that the enchanted blades can unleash a godlike power. Instead, they possess a unique influence where the enchanted blades are able to display powers that were not intended for them during their creation. This might be due to the user's very own willpower, or perhaps due to the strengthening and fortification of the body. Near the enemy's secret base, there is a shack hidden in the tall grass field. And this is what Shiba was after. Shiba was actually present during Chihiro's interrogation with the guard earlier. They learn that there is a shack serving as an entrance to a secret underground warehouse guarded by sorcerers. And Shiba thought they might be able to find vital information there about Hishaku and the enchanted blade Shinichi. Due to their limited time, they decided to split up. Shiba would investigate the shack while Chihiro looked for where Char was imprisoned. But Shiba warned Chihiro that since he wasn't in condition to fight, he should not start a fight with any sorcerers at all. He should just scout and wait for Shiba to return. Chihiro has already found the only entrance into the lab, and while observing from the ceiling bars, he heard the twin sorcerers talking about the child they had watched regenerate multiple times. Chihiro retained his calm demeanor even though he was sure he was so close to where Char was. However, a sorcerer has caught him, and he could no longer stay covert. Shiba immediately sensed that Chihiro was now in a dangerous situation, but he himself was also discovered by the sorcerers guarding the shack. This made him wonder whether he should go back to Chihiro first and leave the shack uninvestigated. The scientist inside the lab was alerted about an intruder with an enchanted blade. And when Char heard about it, she wondered if Chihiro would now be able to rescue her. Chihiro is now in a sticky situation because he is alone facing many enemies. He was caught by a sorcerer who really likes to crouch because he smelled the blood from the guards Chihiro had just killed outside. While thinking about how to escape, suddenly a small organic material appeared beneath him. It was a concealment skill of another sorcerer present there. Chihiro used Kuro to help him dodge the sorcerer's uppercut with the help of a black goldfish. Moving his right arm was still painful for Chihiro, so dodging and blocking attacks was already extremely difficult for him. Another one joined in, and this fifth sorcerer had the ability to deliver extremely powerful blows with his arms. The twins just watched the fight, as it seemed that with just 3 sorcerers, the intruder already stood no chance. It's unclear if the twins were praising Chihiro or insulting him for his courage in coming to their base after being severely injured by Sojo. Chihiro carefully considered what he should do to survive this situation. He suddenly destroyed the light to plunge the whole place into pitch black. And when the emergency lights came on, he had already escaped. All sorcerers and swordsmen were summoned to search for Chihiro and take from him the enchanted blade that Sojo had long desired. And since Chihiro was not in a condition to fight, he had no choice but to remain hidden. Chihiro felt depressed because of his injuries. He really wanted to rescue Char right then and there, but he couldn't do anything but wait for Mr. Shiba. Chihiro experienced a flashback to a time when his father checked on him because he was sulking outside their house. Chihiro was depressed because he had been studying sword forging under his father for so long. And the more he learned, the more he realized that he could never reach the masterful level of skill of his father. Surprisingly, Kunishige just agreed with his son's statement. This made Chihiro feel like his father was not taking him seriously. But that was precisely his problem. According to Kunishige, he was too serious, just like his mother, which meant he could only see what was directly in front of him. It's actually okay and very good to be serious about one's pursuit of learning, but he shouldn't focus too much on being like his father. He needed to find his own path as Chihiro Rokuhara. And why did Chihiro even dream of being like his father, when Kunishige knew nothing else but to make katanas? Unlike Chihiro, he had no clue about household chores. Chihiro remembered how goofy and heartwarming it was to have his late father in his life. He teared up, finding courage in the advice his father had left him: keep a cool head and be more flexible. The scientists planned to finally start their pending experiment on Char, having learned that the intruder posed no real threat. Char lost all hope upon hearing this, and in her sorrow, she seemed to resign herself to her grim fate. Meanwhile, as the enemies hunted Chihiro, the area was surrounded by numerous black goldfish. The Enten's 3 OG skills are Kuro, or Black, unleashing a powerful long-range slash, Aka, the defensive skill capable of absorbing attacks, and Nishiki, the cloaking skill that provides a physical buff to the user. Now, from the OG skill Kuro, Chihiro used a brand new extension technique, Shred. Let's flash back to a time when Char and her mother were still living peacefully together. After Char had sustained a wound on her foot, her mother carefully checked it to ensure it looked normal before she went to school. Char now had to be extra cautious as she started school. She must not let anyone see her special power, for it could put her in danger. Nor should she tell anyone about it, except perhaps to someone truly special to her. And no matter what, she must not repeat her mother's mistake of sharing her secret with the wrong person. But despite the complexities of her life due to their difficult situation, she found great joy in her love for her daughter. As they were about to have breakfast, someone unexpectedly rang their doorbell. Back to the fight. A sorcerer wearing an Apple Vision Pro charged at Chihiro with overconfidence, thinking he was just bluffing. But he immediately regretted it. Everyone is shocked at what just happened. Suddenly, the sorcerer was cleaved in two. Chihiro didn't really just use a single cut. This new move, Shred, utilized the same amount of spirit energy as Black or Kuro, but distributed it across many weaker versions of multiple cuts. The 20 mini-slashes of the Shred skill are so fast that to the normal eye, they appear as one powerful slash. What made it advantageous was that it wasn't as physically taxing as Kuro. Pure instinct led Chihiro to this power, finding a way to continue fighting even when his body was beyond its limits. Now in a state of pure concentration and total focus, here emerged a true prodigy. He managed to use Nishiki to move so incredibly fast that his enemies couldn't see how he decapitated them within a blink of an eye. It turns out that the mother and daughter didn't get to have breakfast that day, as their visitor was actually a kidnapper. Due to rumors that spread after the war, claiming that anyone who consumes the flesh of a Kainagi will be granted immortality, their clan was eradicated. Only these two, the mother and daughter, remained as survivors of the Kainagi clan. They were recent captives of Sojo at that time. Sojo knew that Char's mother was the true sole surviving escapee from the extermination of their clan. She had managed to hide for more than 10 years and even led a normal life, plus even having a child during those years of hiding. For Sojo, Char was nothing more than just an additional sample, someone he could exploit for his experiments. Char's mother blamed herself for the hardships her daughter was suffering with. She wished she hadn't been Char's mother, hoping for a happier life for her. But Char rejected her mother's wishes, claiming she was truly happy as long as she was with her mom. Tears of joy were shed as her mother only wished for a happy life for Char. The twin sorcerers remembered the day the mother and daughter attempted to escape. Their escape plan was well executed, and Char's mother even managed to kill some of their personnel. However, in the very end, the mother was backed to a corner, and only Char had the chance to escape alone. Char initially refused to leave her mother behind. She couldn't comprehend that a happier life awaited her outside, even without her mother. Her mother kept insisting for her to escape alone. When a sorcerer chasing them has already come close to catching them, Char followed her mother's wishes and fled. Indeed, her daughter Char was the very reason she learned to find immense joy in life despite being filled with tragedy and problems. Char's mother managed to burn some researchers and lab equipment in the process, but Sojo was able to quickly rebuild anyway. The enemies were clueless about what was happening due to Chihiro's swift actions as he decapitated them one by one. Warnings from guards and sorcerers didn't reach their comrades in time because Chihiro didn't even give them a chance to think or react. The twins' attempt to bully Char was interrupted when they sensed that the intruder has already decimated their allies. They deployed their sorcery skill, Demon Cloak, but before their capabilities could even be revealed, Chihiro already had their heads separated from their bodies. Chihiro then approached Char, offering her a fresh sandwich, her favorite food. Chihiro first carried Char so they could leave together, both looking disheveled. Char noticed that Chihiro was extremely tired and badly beaten. However, the reason Chihiro was still able to fight earlier using Nishiki was because, instead of using it to power up his movements, it initially served as a support to allow him to move quickly without exhausting his body too much. But this doesn't mean he felt no pain. In fact, his body was in constant severe pain, but he was okay with enduring it all because he knew Char had gone through even more painful experiences in the hands of Sojo's men. Char was happy to learn that he now was okay, but she was worried about Chihiro because he looked really beat up. Recently, Sojo's team discovered that their suspicion was correct. The Regen powers of the Kainagi cells could influence the cells of other people. Yet, for some reason, they still couldn't achieve their main goal. When the two finally got out, Char held Chihiro's injured left hand, closed her eyes, and focused. Her mother had explained to her how their special powers worked. The reason Char's wounds heal quickly is due to her desire to rid herself of the pain she feels. The key factor in their healing powers is the desire to heal, and she could heal even the worst injuries, as long as she wished for it badly enough. That night, something ominous arrived when thick clouds swallowed the full moon. And just in time, Shiba arrived to take on the enemy. But Chihiro had Shiba carry Char instead. Shiba said he should fight instead, but was surprised to see Chihiro could already move his incapacitated hand. Now, he and Shiba knew that Char could also heal the wounds and injuries of others aside for herself. Of course, Char just really wanted to help Chihiro. Chihiro immediately used his left hand to grab the Anton for the next fight. Let's go back to the earlier fight between Sojo and the Anti-Cloud Gouger Special Forces. Akuto and his teammates had just got a 10 to 20 second opening because Sojo had just discharged a full-powered Mei. Akuto noticed something and called Hajime. Sojo used Yui combo with Ko, while Kayahiko threw 2 mini-pulls. When they stuck in the ground near Sojo, Makoto charged at him. Kazan was envious because it wasn't yet his turn to act and he was getting impatient. But Shiyumi reminded him that Sojo shouldn't know about his abilities yet. Makoto managed to catch Sojo by the arm with his giant hands, while Kayahiko placed 2 additional pulls. They hadn't used up their 10 seconds yet, so they continued with their plan. Using Akuto's magnetism abilities, he could take advantage of the electrical charge from Sojo that's now scattered in the atmosphere. Kayahiko used his subdue skill to fully restrain the enemy. And with strong electrically charged magnetism, Akuto repelled Hajime at great speed towards Sojo. Sojo couldn't dodge, allowing them to land a direct hit. Makoto successfully retrieved the Cloud Gouger, so Akuto thought they could now easily finish Sojo. Unexpectedly, Sojo could now summon the Cloud Gouger back using the Mei skill. The enchanted blade emitted a strong electric charge as it returned to Sojo, resulting to Makoto's entire left arm and part of Hajime's left side instantly destroyed. They couldn't believe what they saw. Now, Sojo held the Cloud Gouger in his mouth. The team captain immediately instructed Kazan to use his secret technique. But before he could use Demon Monster, Sojo already cut off his right arm while severely wounding Shiyumi. Now, Sojo was talking to Chihiro, sharing his experiences from the battle he just came from. As he continued to wield the Cloud Gouger, he became more connected to it and quickly gained a deeper understanding of the enchanted blade's abilities. He even managed to mimic Chihiro's Nishiki using a fully charged Mei. Instead of using the electricity for attack, he utilized it to buff himself. Thus, as the number of victims increased, the more he was able to further focus on understanding the enchanted blade. Sojo did not expect Chihiro to be able to move after just a short time after being injured. However, he also noticed that, like him, Chihiro had become more skilled in using the enchanted blade. What Sojo really wanted was to talk to Chihiro about Kunishige and the enchanted blades, but he knew that at this moment, that was unlikely to happen. Both of them are now wounded and exhausted, but both of them also became more proficient in using the enchanted blades. Coincidentally, they both knew they had only 12 seconds left before they could use their ultimate skills. So they began to fight while waiting for those 12 seconds to pass. Sojo versus Chihiro, Cloud Gouger versus Inen, Mei versus Nishiki. Only 12 seconds needed to pass before a winner would emerge from this battle. At this point, both fighters displayed equal strength and speed, making it hard to determine who had the upper hand. As the battle ensued, they also communicated in their minds within a pocket dimension. Seizing the opportunity, Sojo spoke to Chihiro before one of them could die, telling him that he was always on his mind, knowing that he was Kunishige Rokuver's son. He was initially reluctant to believe Chihiro's claim that his idol created the enchanted blades for a heroic and noble purpose, but he eventually accepted this as the truth. Chihiro pleaded for the return of the Cloud Gouger, but Sojo refused, wanting to use the katana as a weapon of mass destruction. Chihiro insisted that he and his father were right, seeing it in his father every day. Sojo was shocked and envious to learn how close Chihiro was to his idol. However, no matter what anyone said, his mind was made up because the truth he knew was, the moment he called upon the Cloud Gouger with the intent to kill the entire elite corps, it responded to him and came to his aid. Chihiro could not believe that the Cloud Gouger would respond to a user with malicious and evil intent. The fight continued, and neither had landed a critical hit until Sojo managed to counterattack, slicing Chihiro's right arm only 3 seconds into the battle. Both moved incredibly fast, but Sojo was slightly quicker, forcing Chihiro to let his arm be cut off to avoid a fatal blow. Sojo told Chihiro that just because he was Kunoshige's son didn't mean he had the sole right to define Kunoshige's character and legacy. With just over 7 seconds left before they could use their ultimates, Sojo was worried about Chihiro's other skills that can be used against him, while he had no choice but to remain cloaked in Mei, as using other skills would dispel the Mei and slow him down significantly. Therefore, Sojo decided to give it his all. In the remaining seconds, he doubled the spirit energy cloaking him to further increase his speed, even though he knew his body couldn't withstand moving after this moment. His incredible speed allowed him to approach Chihiro from his blind spot. But he was astonished when Chihiro still managed to dodge his fastest attack. Meanwhile, in their conversation within the pocket dimension, Chihiro finally accepted the food offered by Sojo. He remembered his father's warning that despite his intentions for creating the enchanted blades to help others, they were still, by nature, weapons used for killing. They are capable of unleashing immense power capable of endangering the world itself. Chihiro also remembered that before Kunoshige died, even his father still had much to learn about the enchanted blade's unknown mysteries. Ultimately, Chihiro accepted Sojo's words and agreed with him. So in this very moment, his only goal was to kill Sojo. Chihiro immediately counterattacked after dodging Sojo's attack, severing his arm. Sojo couldn't believe that Chihiro managed to move even faster than him. If Sojo had doubled the spirit energy his body could cloak, Chihiro tripled it. With only 1.5 seconds remaining, Chihiro now charged at Sojo's blind spot. But instinctively, Sojo's body reacted to the charge, not hitting because Chihiro anticipated this. Chihiro had already released the cloaked Nishiki before approaching Sojo, rendering Sojo's counterattack to be prematurely executed. And now, in honor of his father, Chihiro unleashed his ultimate attack, Kuro. It delivered a slash of immense power at point-blank range, critically hitting Sojo and in the process, breaking Cloud Gouger, which was used to block the attack. Sojo's disappointment was evident in his eyes, while Chihiro's gaze held the intensity of a predator looking down on its prey. The moon re-emerged in the night sky following the end of their battle. Now there's no argument that the Cloud Gouger was indeed destroyed, and Chihiro has finally managed to defeat Sojo with his own hands. Sojo couldn't believe that his double-cloaking Mei technique and the enchanted blade he wielded were still not strong enough. The destruction of his enchanted blade rendered his reserved fully charged Mei useless. He also noticed that, just like him, Chihiro had also decided to abuse and overexert his own body. They finally concluded their conversation in real life and offered each other respects as one enchanted blade wielder to another. The enchanted blades chose Chihiro, but he stated that they also chose Sojo. As Shiba caught a wounded Chihiro, he sensed a presence behind him, but it quickly vanished upon first glance. They left Sojo on his own, crawling back to his base. Given his severe condition, his survival is very unlikely, not to mention further interrogation or torture. Despite his dire situation, Sojo stubbornly continued to crawl to his lab. A disturbed Char offered to heal Chihiro's severed arm. However, Chihiro knew that regrowing a limb would be more challenging than healing broken bones, so he initially hesitated to accept Char's help. But Char was fully determined into trying her best to heal Chihiro anyway. Driven by an unwavering resolve, Sojo managed to reach the inside of the lab despite his critical condition. However, he just found out that all of his equipment are severely damaged. But he believed he had enough understanding about the enchanted blades to finally be able to directly wield the Datenseki and control it in its raw material state. Before dying, he's only got one thing on his bucket list. He wished that he could reach the level of his idol, Kunoshige, and die as his equal. But still, he failed as his body started to reject his boiling spirit energy. He couldn't figure out what knowledge he was lacking. Char was saddened by her inability to regrow Chihiro's arm. Shiba comforted her, making her understand the difficulty of mastering her powers. But Chihiro still thanked Char because her healing earlier proved to be crucial for his recent victory over Sojo. In the lab, the Daten-seki started moving away from Sojo's disintegrating hand. With a bright light and loud roar, it ignited, causing a massive explosion that engulfed the abandoned Kagurabachi castle. Before dying, Sojo's true desire to stand equal to Kunishige ultimately failed, as Chihiro had predicted to him during their battle. 10 days later, the leaders of the Kamiyanabi gathered in a meeting at their headquarters to discuss the recent events. Of the anti-Cloud Gouger Special Forces, only the team captain, Akuto, and the youngest member, Kazan, returned alive, albeit with incomplete limbs. They also learned that Sojo was not the true leader of their enemy, as the enchanted blade Shinichi remained listed in the Rakuza Ichi auction. The leaders were relieved to still possess Kaichi, Kazan's demon monster skill, and were grateful for the sacrifices of their members who were killed in action. However, obtaining Shinichi has just become an even higher priority. There was concern among the leaders about who should now wield the Cloud Gouger. The Kamiyanabi ensured control over enchanted blades by issuing lifelong contracts to trusted sorcerers, allowing exclusive use of each blade. Since the murder of Kunishige and the previous Cloud Gouger wielder, the Kamiyanabi has ensured protection for all remaining wielders, and they are also those who fought in the Imperial War. An enchanted blade's power is sealed to its life contract holder, preventing others from using it as long as the wielder lives. Now, they faced a new problem. Azumi's secret was exposed. Kazan provided a transparent report admitting everything, including Chihiro's existence along with the 7th enchanted blade crafted by Kunishige. The Kamiyanabi leaders were even more troubled as they couldn't locate the Cloud Gouger, assuming Chihiro Rokuhara was hiding it. A few days earlier, Azumi visited the ICU to confront Kazan. Kazan apologized for revealing their secret, but at least he didn't disclose to the leaders the truth about Azumi and Chihiro's lifelong acquaintance. Kazan couldn't bear the thought of letting the enchanted blades go unchecked, blaming those things as the true source of their troubles and the death of his dear friends. One of the leaders questioned Azumi, suspecting his long concealment of Kunishige Rokuhara's offspring, blaming him for everything that's happened. Then, another one joined in. Before their meeting escalated into an interrogation, a significant figure among them intervened, deeming further debate of a problem that bothered them for 3 years already was just a waste of time. Their main goal remained, and it's to recover all stolen enchanted blades, and he doesn't appreciate the consequences of Azumi's secrecy. They needed to find Chihiro, retrieve the Cloud Gouger and the Enten, while avoiding further tragedy like what happened with the Kudo Hagiwaris group. With the aim to confront the holder of 2 enchanted blades, they decided to dispatch the very best, the Kamiyanabi's strongest fighter, Hiyuki Kaguri. Like and subscribe for more.